Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this episode of 30 Minutes to President's Club. My name is Armand Froke, and I'm here with my co-host, Nick Zagowski. And folks, we are back in studio with the legendary Hall of Fame, multiple-time 30 MPC guest, Jake Dunlap. He is a multiple-time VP of Sales. He is the CEO over at Skaled, and this is one of the greatest episodes we have ever had on figuring out how to accelerate your deal cycle based on where your prospect is at. Nick, why should people listen?
So the concept that Jake talks about in this episode is when you meet with a prospect for the first time, they could be anywhere on a range of their buying journey and understanding of the solution, the space, the product, etc. The way that you treat somebody who is totally, utterly cold should be really, really different than someone who is hot, ready to buy, and has deep knowledge and expertise of the space that you play in. You shouldn't be running those calls the same. And so Jake talks about a number of different plays that we can run to accelerate deals when you have folks that are a little bit further along in that journey, and some of the different approaches that you would take for folks that are cold. Jake, welcome back to the show. You may remember we start every episode with your top 3 actionable takeaways, so let's get your 3.
All right, so my first one is how to show up for the first meeting prepared in 2025. What are you gonna do? Show up knowing nothing? So every seller, I want you to hit record or whatever right now, and you're gonna send this email 48 hours before every single call. You are going to say this: hey, XYZ, looking forward to our conversation on Thursday. I talked to many insert job titles, and some of them are already exploring options, use something similar, and are really trying to understand the nuances. Others are much earlier in their journey. Help me to understand where you are in yours so I can meet you prepared for that call. Thank you, Jake. Send that email every single time.
Boom. Beautiful. What's number 2?
Number 2, if somebody says number 1, show up to the call prepared. Bring your sales engineer. If I say, I'm using this product, this is what it is, I used you guys 2 jobs ago, get your engineer, or if you don't have one, get your manager. Be prepared to have a mini discovery proposal meeting. Be prepared to go deep. Don't just show up like they don't know anything and assume that the buyer really just is at step 0. Meet them where they're at. Show them you're the expert and get it.
Round us out. What's number 3?
Okay, number 3 is when you're in the deal cycle, we have to realize not everybody wants to hop on a call. Okay, that's what I was trained. Many of you, hey Jake, I've got a question. Yeah, let's hop on a call and talk about it. Okay, what's the reality today? How do you like to consume? Do you like to get on the phone, or do you like an asynchronous video? Hey John, really great question. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hope this helps. Oh, your CFO had this question. Here's a video for her. 1, 2, 3, 4. So for me, asynchronous video is the future of how we're going to educate people. Middle funnel all day.
Jake, in the prep, you talked about a spectrum where a buyer could be completely cold or literally ready to self-serve. There were, I think, 4 buckets that you mapped out where a prospect could reply to you, and that's going to change the way that you approach the call. What are those 4 different buckets?
Yeah, so in the book, Innovative Seller, we talk about, it's called a concept called VECS, VECS. So V is for vetted, E is for educated, C is for cold, and S is for self-service. And really, I developed this by just like observing buyer behavior. And you're seeing this more and more. You're seeing like, look, buyers, 6 years ago, there wasn't that much stuff about your company online. There was no ability for me to be educated or vetted, or I hadn't bought that technology 2 or 3 times. So when we think about it, a lot of this is just trying to understand, vetted and some of those behaviors. In the book, we give some examples, but think like, I'm already using your competitor and we're up for renewal in the next 60 days, right? That's pretty dang vetted. I've already used your, product at a previous company, right? Think about the things that would help you to know, like, let's go. Educated might be like that step before. Yeah, we've used some like similar type products. I'm not really sure if we're ready to make a change, but I definitely know the space. Definitely interested in kind of understanding what's next. Cold is, hey, you reached out to me, dude. Like, hey, you reached out to me. This is interesting. I heard about you guys. I heard your name at a trade show. Don't really know a lot. And then self-service, look, I talk about this like, in the book, McKinsey did a survey in the years to come, people already, it said like, I think 30% of buyers are ready to self-service at like 40K. I think for a lot of reps, they're like, no, it's like, oh yeah, if I already know the space, I know what's happening, I know the application, I've rolled it out 3 times, I care about your success team. Sorry, seller, love you. But like, can we just go talk to these people who are going to actually set me up anyway?
Yeah.
So that's the concept there. And then, it's really not that complicated to engineer parts of your sales process. And for you as a seller, you don't need your company to do this. You can do this. If someone says that to you, Why wait 3 calls to get there? Again, a lot of companies right now are artificially inflating their sales cycle. They're making it to the buyer's telling you, I am here, show up ready at step 3. I'm sorry, it doesn't fit your criteria to skip it to step 3. You can fill it out after the call. We're just not prepared for this non-linear buying journey right now.
So let's pretend that someone comes inbound and they're like, hey, I'm currently using sales engagement platform. We'll call it Sales Loft.
Yeah.
And I'm selling outreach today. I don't really have to sell them on why use a sales engagement platform at all. And that's what a lot of sellers would do on a first discovery.
Correct.
So you jump on that call, you know they're about to renew Sales Loft in 2 to 3 months. How do you run that call differently if you're selling a competing sales engagement platform?
It's a super, super question. So I want you to think, look, you still need to do a discovery a little bit, right? So again, it's kind of almost like, I like to think of a lot of sales as like, it's a longer process. It's like an accordion, right? So think of it like a more condensed discovery where I'm still going to say, hey, John, great. I've worked with a lot of other directors of demand gen. What are your top 2 or 3 responses? Again, so I would still do that. I'd say, all right, so when it comes to outreach and the priorities for the department, tell me a little bit about those priorities. And then I want to understand gaps. Hey, what are the must-haves for you? What are the things like that you would like to see differently? And what would an ideal outcome look like, right? So we talk about that. What's working well, what's not, and what would ideal outcome? Yeah. So that's about what I'm going to do, because then that way, whenever I do the demo, I can frame those things. But again, instead of the discovery might being 20 minutes, maybe it's 10. Maybe it's like, I'm going to do phase 1 of the discovery now. We'll do a follow-up call later once we kind of get into the vetting process. But I still need to know, like, what's the decision criteria for this person? So, and then again, we should be able to hop into it. We should say, like, great. So, hey, you mentioned these things are important. Let's talk through about how we do those things a little differently. You mentioned this, etc. Typical next steps. You still need to drive momentum. But again, maybe now, because the sales engineer was on the call or whatever, now we're ready to go to proposal, or maybe again, we're ready to do just a quick broader demo with their team. And then we're ready to go to proposal. So instead of first call is, okay, well, great. Here's what we do. It's like, what you do, like it kind of, right? Like, and then the next call is this long demo. And then you're doing more things. It's like, could you just skip ahead if you were like just being thoughtful about where this person is in the process? I'm not going to over-assume. I'm still going to ask the questions to judge, are they really vetted? Because maybe I do need to back it up a little bit. But that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run a truncated discovery process, and then I'm going to be prepared to move quickly and drive momentum.
So let's say I am a AE who's listening to this episode, and I'm like, I am picking up what Jake is putting down, but I don't run the org. I don't run the sales.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't run the SME or SE, or
Of
I
course.
don't have control over my sales engineer. And now I need to go to my SE team and say, hey, this is a first call, but I need you on this. How do I articulate that to my sales engineering resources so that I get someone good, prepared, and happy to be on that customer call?
Well, I think that's what the first email is going to help you with, right? Because the first email, and look, if someone responds to you in that first email, do you think you can ask a follow-up question?
Yeah. Totally.
You sure can. Exactly. So if they come in and they say, Jake, actually, again, in that example, I used Sales Loft already. Yeah. I used you guys before. Some of those questions in the discovery, I might ask that in a follow-up email. All right, hey, John, great. I'm looking forward to it. I'm already talking to my team behind the scenes here. Help me to understand, like, maybe what are one of the top 2 or 3 areas that would like to see different? And what are some of the things maybe you've heard about us and what we're doing? Well, this, and this, and da-da-da. If I take that to my SE or my manager, I say, I've got somebody who looks like this. They already know this. Yeah. Man, you need to look for another job. If they're literally like, nah, we got to run, like, I think we're so stuck in this mindset of like, but that does not compute. We have to start here. I would like to think most managers are very reasonable people. And if you showed them a back and forth that said they're already doing this, they would be like, get on the call.
I remember there was this one time where this girl was trying to do a rip and replace. I was on one call recording platform and she was trying to get me onto another call recording platform. And so she got on the call, and to your point, she started with the biggest priorities as it pertained to me growing the SDR org, because I had just taken over the SDR org. And she started there, which is probably how she would have started any discovery call. But then immediately she was like, look, you already have a call recording tool. You know these 4 things exist in all the tools on the market. I'm now going to talk about the 3 places where there are gaps.
Love it.
Where you can't meet those priorities because you're on this tool today. Yeah. And 75% of the call was focused on everything that my current tool could not do versus what most sellers do is they find out halfway through their deal cycle that there's a
Exactly.
competitor involved, and they're like, oh shoot, I should probably start asking some trap questions.
That's right. Yeah. And Gong did research on this a long time ago. It's like there was like a correlation between talking about the competition on the first call and win rates. I mean, this is like years ago now. I remember seeing this too.
I guess question for you, if they don't respond to that email, because sometimes our buyers don't respond to that pre-meeting email.
Yeah, of course.
How are you getting information on where they are in that journey before you start just like jumping in and running it like a normal call?
I love your example. That is exactly it. I'm going to start them off in the cold process. I'm going to run my typical how I start the meeting, set the agenda, run the discovery. And then if in the discovery, I understand these things, again, this is where sellers, we got to stop just going through the motions. Like we have to turn on the brains and be like, oh, great, because I'm an expert. I'm a consultant. I'm going to help you. I've always had that mindset as a seller. I don't know where necessarily it came from, but it's like, look, my job is to help to get you on the path. Once you tell me your path is here, well, I need to help you down that path. And he told me his path is, I already use this. I know them because we compete against them all the time. Okay, well, great. I love that talk track. I think every seller could literally steal like a template there of like, oh, great. Well, look, if you're already doing that, then let me ask you a couple of extra questions. What are the gaps? What do you want to see different? Okay, well, great. Let me tell you a little bit about us and how we think about the things that you said that matter.
Yeah.
Okay, so since you're already here, when's your renewal up? Boom. Then I'm going to start to say, hey, let's move this person past step 2 to step 3. You know what I mean? So I really love that example because it's a really great seller that did that. Recognize where your path is. Don't try to put everyone on the same path. Listen.
Yeah.
Stop multitasking, get off Slack, get off your email and listen, or you're going to miss a lot of these nuances.
Yeah, I mean, what it really reminds me of what you guys are talking about is there's a concept in competitive deals about the winning zone, the neutral zone, and the losing zone, where if you think about you and your competitor, there is some overlap. Like if you think about a Venn diagram, there are areas that you beat them, that's your winning zone. There are areas that they beat you. That's the losing zone. And then there are areas that you are basically the same. That is the neutral zone. And in order to win a competitive deal, you need to spend most of the focus with them on amplifying the importance of your winning zone. You need to neutralize the losing zone in their mind. And then you just need to make sure they know you check the box in the neutral zone where you're basically the same as them. But if you don't know where they're at, you don't even know, do I need to accelerate the conversation to focus on these zones, or are we talking to somebody cold? Because
I've got to educate them on why this is important, how this is different than just your basic recording tool. And if what they tell me is these things that I went on don't matter, well, then like, look, that's not necessarily where we can help you. And then I kind of plant seeds where I'm like, if this happens and this happens over the next, before your renewal, let's pick up the conversation in 30 days. And I already know those things are going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So I want to swing all the way to the other direction. So this is talking about established space, established solution. I know what you do. I might even be using a competitive product. There are other spaces where they don't use anything in your space. In fact, your space might be a very nascent space, and you have to spend more of your time just like explaining like why this solution even exists in the world and educating them on it. So for example, a lot of these new AI-powered SDRs, a lot of leaders getting on these calls and they're like, what is this magic meatloaf thing? Is it going to like take over half my team? Does it actually work? And my guess is you're not focusing on differentiation from competition in those calls. You're focusing on education. So how do you run those calls?
Yeah, you got to think of those. I mean, those are the ones where, you're starting somewhat from the beginning, because here's the thing. If from an education, if they don't believe the thesis, that the future is this, you're going to have some SDRs, and I'm just going to make up a value prop for one of these companies. You have some SDRs that are doing this high value, whatever touch point. You have this account coverage model where you need to do this. The future is the hybrid approach. And if you have reps that are hitting send all on emails, they're making calls that are all vanilla, do you think that is going to be replaced? If you don't buy the thesis, me demoing my product has nothing to do with it. So this is more like sales technique-y. So I need to educate. And then for even those companies, what I would say is you're still looking ways to educate outside of the hop on a call. B2B sales is very behind in terms of ways to educate people with videos, with, I'm not a big fan of like long things, but again, think about different videos for different use cases. Like every company should have a demo geared for the CFO, a demo geared for the director, a demo geared for the end user. This one's 5 minutes, this one's 4 minutes. This ability for people to self-educate is the future, whether you're in a brand new category or a competitive category. I think sales teams are very, very behind and marketing teams are very, very behind how people actually want to consume content.
Yeah, I mean,
right now.
it makes me think about when I sold ERP software to law firms, we got slowed down so much in the deal process because anytime the prospect had a question that I couldn't answer, I had to go get a sales engineering resource. And they always wanted to meet with the prospect live to hop on a call. And that might elongate our sales process by a week because we wouldn't be available to meet that week. And they had meetings and like, all right, great, we're going to see you next Wednesday. And if we had built out any sort of just like generic library that would have gotten people 80% of the way there, and then I could add extra context, we would have sped things up like crazy.
Yeah.
So some plays that I'm hearing from you that I can use to accelerate my deal when I have somebody who is closer to that vetted end of the spectrum. First one I heard is like, first call, I'm bringing on an SE, I'm bringing on a manager. I'm hearing this like asynchronous video as a way to get them information faster to accelerate. What other plays do I have in my toolkit that I can start to use to move my deals faster?
Yeah, I think those two to me are some of like the easier ones as a part of this. And I think just really also being thoughtful with this concept, and we've talked about this for a long time, that more kind of disparate communications, whether it's more meetings with different people or communicating separately outside of through one channel, can accelerate deals.
Okay.
That, you know, especially in more complex deals where you know that there are these multiple people. So it might not be the modalities. Like I still love asynchronous videos, like probably my favorite modality for a lot of this, but I might separate it. I might send 3 recaps. One for the CTO. Hey, John, I'm really looking forward to our meeting in 2 days where we're going to talk about more technical requirements, blah, 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 blah. Hey, Jake, I'm really excited about, you know, ABC. I think that the ability to parallel path all these buyers, which is what you do in your proposal, right? You say, hey, this is what's in it for you. This is what's in it for you. Those are my go-to ways to do it. You know, also I'm a big fan of like transparency around pricing relatively early. I think we kind of expect this now. We're being so trained in our B2C buying behavior of like now 100% transparency, one click to buy. Like you just have to think all those behaviors are conditioning us in buying on B2B as well too. So I think I like those modes and those plays, and then just think about how you can get even more specific to individual buyer, you know, people in the buying circle.
I want to go back to some of these colder deals because I know there are a lot of sellers who are listening who sell a product that is not very well known. You talked a lot about, I'm going to spend a lot of time really digging into the problem before I show the solution. And this is absolutely what happened to me at Pave is we were selling compensation software. No one used a compensation planning tool. It was always on Excel. So it was like a weird thing to even consider buying a compensation planning tool. So we would have to get them to sit in the pain of running comp cycles for calls and calls and calls and calls and like dose the software and along the way like use references to be like, hey, you're not weird for using a tool. Look at all these companies like you that are also solving and feeling this problem. I'm curious, Jake, what are other tactics that I can use in a completely cold sales cycle to make it real and not feel like it's a weird thing to buy myself?
Yeah, I want to be clear. You should do a mini demo in the first call. I think this is a big mistake. You know, we've got one client, we call it the Harbor Tour, which is this kind of 5-minute, you know, another sales leader, I stole this from him years ago. He called it, you got kind of a level 1 demo, which is a 5-minute walkthrough where you can quickly say, look, great, Jake. So in the next call, so how you kind of do the setup for that, you say like, look, so great, I appreciate you taking some time. Then you do the education piece. Yeah, Jake, that actually is something we're thinking about. Okay, well, look, let me give you a quick high level. And then in the next conversation, what we're going to do, you mentioned these other people. We'll set up time with them. We'll do a more comprehensive walkthrough of some of the people who might be actually using it. If that looks good, then we'll put together pricing, et cetera. But let me give you a quick high level, maybe answer some basic questions, and then we'll do a more detailed. Does that work for you, Nick? They're going to say yes. And then you say, great. So let's talk about the 3 things that you mentioned. Number 1 is you mentioned this. Right. So you can have in every demo, everyone should have a 5-minute demo, maybe 5 to 8 minutes, where you have 5 stopping points. And based on the things that they told you, you only stop at those destinations. So if they didn't mention one, you just say, great, so we can do this, but let's talk about this. You know, again, you mentioned comp planning, you mentioned the interaction point. So let me just show you really quickly, like how we can do that. And then third, you mentioned this, great. Again, you're driving to the next meeting. I think that this is really important. I do not think that a sales call should ever exist for the benefit of one person, that they should always walk away getting some value. So everybody needs to have that level 1, you know, demo. That's not the, you know, the 45-minute demo, right? It's just like, get them excited. That's what I want to do is I want to build excitement and momentum for the next call.
What do the next levels of demos look like?
It depends on the audience, man. So again, like I'll give you 2 scenarios. You come in through a department head and then the department head brings in their team. What do we think the goal should be? I need to get these people losing their minds, man. I need them to be like, great. So I'll give you one of the biggest issues that people don't do. So let me get real tactical with you guys. Here's how you have to start every big meeting. Okay. Never think you are not some person who needs to get up on stage and dance. Okay. That's not your job. The second call with their team, here's exactly what I want you to say. Hey guys, really excited for the conversation today. I had a really good first conversation with Nick. And so looking forward to talking to you how I think we can do some of that. So first, what we're going to do is let me just recap what I heard from Nick. And then, and this is what you're not doing today probably, I want to just maybe spend a couple of minutes and hear how maybe a couple of you are seeing some of these problems, or maybe it's a little bit different. So great. My conversation with Nick, we talked about this. How would you all describe this? So again, it's very clear here. Get rid of, does that make sense? Close-ended questions, right? So I might go through 1, 2, 3. So these are the 3 things I heard. Let me ask you this. So, this person who just did an intro, John. Hey, John, so like, how would you view these problems based on your role as social media manager? I get them talking. And then when I do the demo, I start my dance, I start directing different pieces at each individual. So then they see like, oh, John sees how it helps him in social media. Rick sees how it's going to help him with marketing analytics. And then the same thing with a complex deal. If your second meeting on the flip side is with multiple stakeholders outside of one department. Okay, that's the other, pitfall that we run into, right? One is that demo. The end users need to get excited about it, et cetera. And then the other is the multiple stakeholders group here. And again, this is about your modernizing your customer journey, et cetera. How you're going to start that meeting is very similar. Hey, had a really good conversation with Nick, but I also, want to verify, hey, for you IT, for you operations, maybe some areas that you'd like to add. The thing that you always want to do, just this is a pro tip, is just isolate IT and isolate HR. So how you start any big meeting with complex deals, if they're not your main buyer, to be very clear. And you'll say, okay, guys, look, the goal of this conversation, I had a good conversation with Nick, is really just to talk through big picture, how I think we might be able to help. IT, I know, hey, John, we did intros already, I'm assuming. We're actually going to set up a more technical conversation here in the next 3 or 4 days where we can go a little bit deeper on integrations. Again, reiterate, goal for today is to just see, is there a potential alignment here? And then you recap, you get people's input. IT asks those bullshit questions where they're like, well, what about this, this, and this? It's the second call. You're like, that is a great question, Jake. That's exactly what we're going to talk about next week. Next topic. And then you don't let IT derail. Or I might send out videos afterwards. After that call, hey, IT, looking forward to our call in 48 hours. Here's a quick high level you can watch about our APIs and integrations. Some of these are kind of tried and true things that like still very much work today that are more like controlling the room, I guess, techniques as a part of it. But I think every seller needs to know this stuff.
Well, what I'm hearing is there's this theme that's coming full circle, which is sometimes you've brought a prospect through stages 1, 2, and 3. If you get to stage 3, you're presenting to the big team. So many sellers are like, all right, I'm going to start discovery all over again. Or they're like, great, I'm just going to jump into the demo, even though there are 3 people in the room who literally have no idea what we do. And what you want to do is you want to meet the team where they're at.
Exactly.
So you want to recap 80% of what you've learned about the organization, the problems that they have. Whether that were things that happen in previous close loss opportunities and you're bringing those to the first discovery call, whether that's a reply that they sent to your 48-hour email, or whether those are things that you learn on the first 2 calls with your champion. And then it's almost like once you've got the snowball rolling, every call adds another 20% to that layer. So you say like, great, here are the problems that we've already learned based on everything you've done with us in the past. Would you add the next 20%? So you're not starting all over again, which is the most frustrating thing in the world for a buyer.
And the other thing that you talked about that I think is really important is you have to understand when we get into deals that are slightly more complex, but the reality is people buy in teams, that there is a buying team, the people that are, at the decision-making process, they're the people that are going to either sign, but also influence that. And then you have an end user team. Every deal has these 2 teams. So guess what? Your end user team might come in vetted, but guess what? They loop in somebody on the buyer team. We might have, to your point, I need to start back here. Hey, this is what we're doing, Then we move forward. So we also have to think about not all deals are, linear, right? We're trying to meet each group in each meeting where they are. That's what I'm trying to think about is where is this group of people? And, do I need to actually do a first prep call with that buying team to catch them up to where now the whole snowball is, kind of rolling here. So I think that's just an important caveat you called about these different groups that might not be at the same stage. And that's your job as a seller to not assume that they are. You've got to meet them there.
What I'm hearing from you is that humans end up falling somewhere on that VEX scale of vetted, educated, full to self-service, not accounts. Because I might be fully vetted and Armand is totally and utterly clueless. And so you need to work us and engage with us differently. And so I guess my question is, if you're working a deal you're probably starting with one person, and I hear that first meeting email that you send of like, hey, where are you? What do you do to make sure that you're never showing up unprepared with somebody on a call as it relates to not knowing where they are? Because you're going to be talking to multiple people.
Especially once you start to get into the deal cycle. So there's a couple different like tactics or techniques here we can kind of dive into. The first is, again, when I get into like that broader call with the team, it's always helpful for maybe at the end of like in between the calls, I might ask, again, asynchronously, etc. Right? I ask the person, but I don't fully take into account their answer. Like I'm still going to verify, because that's one person. That's why the concept of like a singular champion, it's like they have one perspective. I'm always like, great, you're an amazing person, but I also need to go verify this stuff for myself. So I'm always going to start the process like, if I don't know, that we're at the cold process. And then like we talked about, to bring it kind of full circle, as soon as I hear those indicators, again, but look, if their whole team is already using this software, we're probably here. But I need all of them to tell me what their things that they like are and what they didn't like. So then I can highlight the other things outside of the concentric circle that they might have mentioned. So I think there's always this like realignment. Discovery is really never done. You're doing like a reconfirmation. How many of you have lost deals at the end because they're like, oh, well, what about that thing? And you're like, dude, we could have talked about that. I don't know what happened. And it's usually because you heard what they wanted in the beginning and you kind of pulled that through line, but it's been 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and things have changed, priorities have shifted, and you didn't do kind of that reconfirmation or realignment to just try to meet people where they're at. Maybe something happened. Somebody left. There's so many things that happen in today's world. People leaving jobs, economy, that, I think it's just much more dynamic to be a seller today, that you need to be able to meet people where they're at and understand that where they were 2 weeks ago could be foundationally different than where they are today.
When I was a VP of sales at Pave, I was brought in to buy software at the end of an evaluation. I knew directionally my RevOps team was looking into a CPQ platform. I had no idea what CPQ means. If you're not familiar with what CPQ is, folks, it's like what actually allows you to like punch in a quote into your CRM or software. It automatically populates your opportunities with like how many seats, year over year expansion, and then it'll generate a proposal. So I get on this call and they're like talking in all this jargon about the differentiators of why this CPQ is better than this CPQ platform. And I just look at the screen and I'm like, hey guys, what's CPQ? And they completely just tanked the call for me.
I love it.
I was like, dude, I'm sorry. Like, I don't even know what CPQ is.
Oh, I love that you said that, though. At least you're like, hey, man, let's start back.
Right, because most buyers are going to start looking at their Slack, totally tune out, and then nix the purchase because they're like, I don't even know how this is relevant to our
That's right.
Oh, man. Jake, this has been an amazing episode, but we are running out of time, and we have to move to the last question, which is, we've talked about a lot of really great things salespeople should be doing. Now I got to ask you about a shouldn't. And so the last question is, what is one bad habit that you see a lot of sellers exhibiting that they need to break because it hurts them more than it helps?
Multitasking. Our human brain actually is not good at multitasking. My friends, the sales meeting is showtime. Yeah. That is our game time. And if you are sitting there and you are multitasking, you are missing so much. You're missing the verbal cues, the nuances of like, oh, did his pitch just go up real quick? Multitasking is killing more sales, and an over focus on like, am I looking at the right person on Zoom versus am I hearing globally? Yeah. Stop multitasking. This is showtime. You spent all that time to do the prospecting. This is it. You better be present. I did see on what was it? AJ Brown reading a book on the sidelines the other day, right? Like multitasking. But for the rest of you, this is showtime. So don't multitask in your meetings.
Phenomenal.
Be present.
Jake, thank you for joining us. Everybody stick around for a 60-second recap coming up soon.
All right, Nick, it is time for a 2x2 recap from this episode with Jake Dunlap. What do you have for your 2?
So number 1 is you have to understand where the human being you are talking to falls on that VEX scale. V is for vetted, E is for educated, C is for cold, and S is for self-service. Somebody who is vetted, using a competitor, looking to move, should be treated differently than someone who's educated, they feel pretty good, but they want a little bit more, which would also be different than someone who is totally cold and is like new to the space. So understand where they fall on that spectrum and treat those folks differently. Number 2 is, in order to figure out where somebody falls on that spectrum, you got to ask them. And so send that email that Jake talked about in the beginning of the episode where you ask, where are you today in your journey of learning about this stuff?
Number 3, if you get someone who is vetted, or they might even be on a competitive solution, you still start with the business priorities, but then you want to jump right to the gaps with their solution today, and then their ideal outcome. You do not want to do discovery on why you need a sales engagement platform if they literally already have a sales engagement platform. And then lastly, number 4, the same deal goes for third, fourth call inside of a sales cycle. You don't want to restart discovery every single time a new person gets added to the call. So what you do is you recap everything you've learned, and then you say, hey, Anna, I'm curious, how do these problems impact what you're seeing in the social media department? Alrighty, Nick, how can people help us out here?
Well, there are 2 ways. Way number 1, if you want to go deeper on some of the stuff that Jake talked about today, he wrote a phenomenal book called The Innovative Seller. There's a link in the show notes. I highly recommend picking up a copy. Let him know we sent him your way. Great read. Number 2 is Jake talked about that bigger team demo. When you've got multiple people in the room, you're going to recap the priorities. That's something we talk about at 30MPC a lot, the big team demo deck. We have built an example team demo deck that you can go use to run more effective meetings when you have 2, 3, 4 people in the room. So links in the show notes for both of those things. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next week on 30MPC.